Hi, and welcome back to Biblical Theology, Exegesis, and Hermeneutics, where meaning is always context-driven. I am your host, John Strazicich, and we'll be working through Hebrews chapter 6, verses 13 to 20 today, and rounding out this unit here of admonition, exhortations, warning, and exposition, and we'll be looking at this a little more carefully here when we come to the next slide. Okay, so what we've covered here so far in the last couple of weeks, under the title "Jesus, the Great High Priest," which is going to cover the chapters from 4:11 to 10:39. Our first unit here represented by capital letter A here: admonitions, exhortations, and exposition concerning apathy, apostasy, and assurance. Excuse me, and this takes place over these chapters here from 5:11 to 6:20. And we already looked here at this unit here, admonition and exhortation concerning the dangers of apathy. And we looked at that some weeks back. And then our last session, we looked here the warning concerning apostasy in Hebrews 6, 4 to 12. And then, so this whole big long unit here is going to round out here with an exposition concerning assurance, which is God's promise, and we should probably put in here, and oath as the basis of our hope. and that's going to be reflective of our unit here in our focus today in 6:13 to 20, in that this particular unit is focusing on the assurance of God's promises and oath on behalf of the heirs of the promises. So this here is what we'll be looking at today, and you can see here that we divided up this unit into two big macro structural units, from 13 to 15, and then from 16 to 20, and that follows suit here with the way the text is constructed. And like normal, we'll go ahead and we'll begin here. We'll work on our translation here of the text. For when God promised to Abraham, since he had no one greater to swear by, he swore by himself, saying, I will certainly bless you and multiply you. And in this manner, having been patient, he obtained the promise. For men swear according to someone, or we could say something greater, and the oath for confirmation is an end of all controversy for them, in that God, desiring to demonstrate abundantly to the heirs of the promise his immutable counsel, he guaranteed with an oath, in order that through two immutable things in which it is impossible for God to lie, we who have fled to take hold of the hope which lies before might have strong encouragement, which we have as an anchor of the soul, firm and secure, and entering within the veil, where Jesus, the forerunner, entered for us, or on our behalf, having become a high priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. There's somewhat maybe some roughshod translation here of the Greek text. But what's important here to note is that in starting here in 13 all the way down here to 15, this is like a compound sentences joined together here by Kai here in verse 15. So that is going to form one unit. So that's why we went ahead and put here that there's basically going to be 2 points, major points within this unit here of 13 to 20. And the second one, verses 16 to 20, is one big long sentence. So all of this is going to remain underneath one heading. And I've entitled it The Basis of God's Promises Displayed in Oaths. Offer assurance for the heirs of the promise. So it basically functioned that God's oath and promise is going to offer assurance for the heirs of those promises, and then that's basically and then it offers a strong hope, and which functions as an anchor of the soul, and we'll see how this develops here. And then the first unit here, Abraham's example as the one who obtained God's promise, and that this verse 13 basically really hinges well with verse 12 prior, picking up on the similarity of vocabulary here, and we'll see here that the word promise, or the verb promise, and the other verb for patience that were used in verse 12 are repeated here, and it helps the transition going from 13 into, or from 12 into 13 to 20, and it binds these two units together. And he does so really, it's somewhat ingenious, is that he uses Abraham, and Abraham is the person in the Old Testament that specifically is joined together with Melchizedek. And so Abraham is a good way to get back to his discussion about Melchizedek, and that how Christ is going to become a high priest according to the order of Melchizedek. So he picks up Abraham, which just really flows good together, because if you look back at Genesis 14, where Abraham, coming back from the slaughter of the kings, is met by Melchizedek. And so that gets the author moving in the right direction for chapter 7, which shapes it all up to begin his discussion about the priesthood of Melchizedek, and then Christ also becoming a high priest according to the same order. Okay, so that's a little way here of introducing this particular unit, and we'll work through the structure here as we move on in the passage. But for now, we'll turn the page, and we'll see what Lane has to say. Okay, so coming here, I wanted to reiterate some of the important comments made by some of the scholars here on the book of Hebrews. So we'll look here at length. The introduction of a new literary unit in 613 is indicated by a simple change in genre. The writer turns from exhortation to exposition of the reliability of the divine promise extended to Christians through the high priestly ministry of Christ. The transition from the previous unit is achieved smoothly by the repetition of catchwords introduced in 612, promise and patience, evangelia, macrothumia, the appeal to imitate those who had acquired the promises of God through faith, and steadfast endurance in 612 called for specification. And this is provided in 6:13 and 20 by reference to Abraham. And he received the promise and God's confirming oath after having endured the most severe trial of his faith. That was the offering up of Isaac, the Akedah, as it is known in Hebrew. That means the binding of Isaac. The relevance of his firm faith, obedience, and patience to those who are now heirs of God's promise is demonstrated in verses 16 to 20. God's promise and oath provide strong encouragement to hold firmly to the objective content of Christian hope. The concluding reference to Jesus having become a high priest like Melchizedek constitutes a fresh announcement of the subject announced previously in 5:10 and prepares for the development of the theme in basically chapter 7. Okay, so William Lane there has set the table basically for this unit, and its basically its constituent parts, and I wanted you to be aware of his comments, which were excellent. And also, he and other scholars have noticed that there is a number of legal and technical language that's offered in this particular unit, such as oath and ontologia, which would be controversy. Omnuo here is to swear, and then kate used with the genitive, which would be putting like one's hand down upon something by which to swear by, and so we would include this prepositional phrase using the genitive, and this would add to the legal and technical language. And then this verb here, besituo here, which basically means a mediate, to mediate or to arbitrate, and in our context it's translated to guarantee, and it's guaranteeing the oath. So this is all very legal and technical language. And then this prepositional phrase eis bebiosin, for confirmation, and so this is more legal language, confirmation, talking about the confirmation of the oath, and then we have amenthetos here, and this is the term unchangeable or immutable. So this is going to be technical language. So all of this stuff here just shows that this particular unit is highly forensic in nature, legal language, and it permeates the passage, and it's all used as strong. It's offering Christians strong assurance and encouragement in hope. And that is how the author is using this language. Okay, coming here and looking at a little bit of diagrammatical structure here, we can see this here is verses 13 to 15, and you can see how the sentence these sentences here are bound in a construction here by Kai that comes here at verse 15. And so verses 13 and 14 is one big long sentence, and it's connected here in this last sentence here. It's a compound sentence. So that's why 13 to 15 is going to be one unit. And it begins here with gar. It's a conjunction that coordinates these bigger clauses. So this forms a basis clause for what was just said, particularly in verse 12. And so this is how it's going to function: is forming the basis for what was just previously said. And so what we have here, we have our baseline. So the basic thrust of the sentence is God swore by himself, so that's basically the core of the main clause here. And then we have subordinate clauses, and so we have an adverbial use here of a participle that's going to offer colorization here to the verb here for to swear, and so we'll look. Let's just look at how this sentence is. This is how it's I guess its skeletal frame here is that's kind of what structural analysis does. It just kind of looks at the skeletal frame of the unit syntactically, grammatically. So God swore by himself, since he had no one greater to swear by, having promised to Abraham, I will certainly bless you and multiply you, and so this is basically what he's saying. It's introduced by Legon here, saying, I will certainly bless you and multiply you. And so this is how the sentence here is framed structurally here, according to grammar. And then it's bound here by Kai, and it adds the last part, the verses 13 and 14. We're speaking mainly about God and what God had promised to Abraham, and then it shows Abraham's side of the agreement was that, and he obtained the promise in this manner, having been patient. So having demonstrated patience in this manner, Abraham obtained the promise. And so I think that obviously here the promise is going to refer to the aspect here where it is said that God was going to multiply him, and that it all concerned Isaac. And that's where this particular quotation here comes from Genesis chapter 22. In the whole unit of the Akedah, where God had promised to Abraham to multiply his seed, because Abraham demonstrated that he was even willing to obey God and offer him up as a burnt offering, which God, of course, stopped. But remember, this was a test. God tested Abraham. God never had in his mind that he was ever going to allow Abraham to, to sacrifice his son upon an altar to God, but God was testing him to see if he would even obey him in that manner, in which Abraham passed the test, and so he became the father of Judaism. The Jews, it's Father Abraham. The Jewish race is headed up in Abraham. He is their progenitor, and the one who demonstrated faith. And so by Abraham having demonstrated patience. Remember, when God called him, he was 75 years old, and so when he came into the land of Canaan, he was there for 25 years, and then finally he obtained the promise of Isaac, and then God had the audacity to test him, and this was many years later. After Isaac was born, and so so we're looking at a long time, 35 years. Isaac is older here, and then God is asking him or testing him. And then when Abraham passed this test, that's when God swore by himself that he would multiply him and bless him with innumerable progeny. And that basically had its fulfillment as the nation grew, especially from Jacob onward. And this is how it historically developed. Okay. Coming here now to this particular verse, I believe this is going to be 16, and it begins with gar, with a basis clause. For men swear by someone greater, and the oath for confirmation is an end of all controversy for them. So this here is you can see that this is a compound sentence here that is joining here by kai, and then explains basically that the oath, the method of taking an oath is a means by which we take people very seriously in whatever promissory note or their testimony that we can be sure that they're generally speaking the truth under oath. And so he's bringing up the writer here is bringing up the necessity of oath taking as a means by which all controversy amongst men comes to an end by means of men taking oaths. And so he gives the demonstration here of the reality of how testimony is made sure in the ancient world by means of oath, and then he's going to then say that then God also is going to demonstrate that his promises are also made by oaths. So that it's ultimately doing is that God is giving us the assurance that we can trust the promises that God has made, that He will fulfill His word, so that we can fully trust and hope in the message that God has given mankind. So that's basically why He's going to use the human form of oath taking, and that He is going to be compared to God's. So then likewise we have here, and God guaranteed, or God guaranteed it with an oath. Okay, and so then we're going to have this adverbial clause here, this extended participial clause with a it's a complementary infinitive here, and so it comes out here that God guaranteed it with an oath, desiring to show His immutable will more abundantly to the heirs of the promise, in order that we who have fled, taking hold of hope, that we might have strong encouragement through two immutable things, by which it is impossible for God to lie. And so this, I kind of had to, this part, I didn't have enough room here to lay out everything properly, but through two immutable things here is going to be modifying the subjunctive here, ekomen here, and I had to go over elpidos here in order to do it. So I violated some of the structural things, but I had to fit it all on one page. It's really hard to do this sometimes. But anyhow, so this is an analysis here of this particular verse here, and we have a subordinate hina clause here. This is a purpose clause, which is important. So this tells us the purpose for the reason why God guaranteed it with an oath, and He's doing this. He's desiring to abundantly show to the heirs of the promise His immutable will, and then in order that we who have fled to take hold of the hope which lies before, through two immutable things, in which it is impossible for God to lie. Okay, so this is it's quite complicated. We have this substantive here, participle, that's standing in as the subject here, and it fills in we here of from the verb echo, from the subjunctive use of ekomen. So it identifies who the we is. It's we who have fled, and we're fleeing to take hold of the hope which is laid up before, through two immutable things by which it's impossible for God to lie. So this is all talking about the method here of oath taking, and by which God, guarantees, His oath, and it's by means of this whole swearing here, and by which and it's impossible for God to lie. So whatever God states here, it's going to come to pass, and He's doing this to demonstrate more abundantly for what? For the heirs of the promise. So that comes to the readers, and then we're heirs of the readers and of the promises to Abraham, we who believe in Christ. And so we're to have very, very strong encouragement here. We're to have strong encouragement that whatever God said, that He's going to bless us and multiply us, that these are the things that God has promised to do, and it's a general promise that stating basically whatever God has said in His Word, that we're sure that they will come to pass. And so we have the example here of Abraham, and so that's very important for our author. Okay, so moving along here in the sentence, which is going to follow, which we have as an anchor of the soul, both firm and secure, and entering within the veil, where Jesus, the forerunner, entered on our behalf, having become a high priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. And so this is how 20 and 19 here, 19 and 20 here develop the encouragement that we have by means of hope, and so we have, which is referring back to elpidos here, which we have, and this is hope, and this hope is it's colored here by as an anchor of the soul, which is both asphale and bebion, which is both secure and firm, and these are closely united, and then more loosely here connected with as erchomenein, which is another adjectival participle that is going to go along here, that modifies the hope, or in this anchor here, which is the anchor is the hope. So anyhow, so it's entering within the veil. That's where our hope is going, with our prayers and our faith, that we're looking to heaven. And it says here in this subordinate clause here, hapu, this particle here that's a subordinate conjunction, use it verbally here, where Jesus, the forerunner, entered on our behalf. So this is talking about the Holy of Holies in heaven itself, where Jesus is entered on our behalf as a high priest according to the order of Melchizedek, and that's where our hope and our hope that is this anchor of the soul that's both firm and secure, and it enters in here into the very Holy of Holies, and then it's so our hope basically ultimately is in Christ, who some people want to equate our hope with Jesus. He is the hope of glory, so I'm not going to criticize that by any means. But it's our hope here, ultimately in Christ as the forerunner who's entered there on our behalf. And so what is he doing inside there? Well, what does the high priest do, the Aaronic high priest do in the Holy of Holies, where he's obtaining our atonement for our sins, so that we can be acceptable to God, and that we can be sanctified. So, as holy. So this is the ministry that Christ has performed on our behalf, and he does it in accordance with the order of Melchizedek, because remember, Christ is from Judah, and there is no priestly lineage of Judah also performing the duties of the priesthood. That is the tribe of Levi. So that's why he's quoted here Psalms 110, which says that the future messianic king is also going to be a priest according to the order of Melchizedek. So this is just Hebrews is showing how Christ fulfills both the king and priesthood, and that's what's going on here. Okay, so coming back here to the structural analysis, we pick up here in C here, and we just worked through points, the major macro structure elements of 1 and 2 here, and we've demonstrated here that especially here in verses 16 to 20, the basis of human assurance is vouchsafed by oath taking, and then the basis of divine assurances are also vouchsafed to humanity by God's own oath taking, and then the basis of God's promise and oath serve a purpose, and that is to offer an anchor to the soul, and it's expressed by the two unexpressed means of the purpose statement. So when it said that by two immutable things it's impossible for God to lie, that would be referring to the sworn statement and the oath, that the statement is performed in conjunction with an oath. And then there's this instrumental means of the purpose statement by which it's impossible for God to lie, and a general purpose statement that we might have strong encouragement. That's the basis of that's the main statement, that we might have strong encouragement. And then it's telescoped more specifically, that it's looking at it as eschatological hope, and this hope then it functions as an anchor of the soul. It's secure and firm. It enters within the veil, and then it has this clause here, this hapu clause here. It's a particle that introduces a subordinate. It's a subordinate conjunction that introduces a subordinate clause, and it says where Jesus, the forerunner, has entered within the veil, and performing as a high priest according to the order of Melchizedek. Boom. So this is what he lays out here. And these are somewhat of the statements that is made, and we'll look here at what so looking here at this phrase here, we refugees, the verb katafugain may mean fleeing from persecution or other threat, but it also means seeking refuge or laying claim to someone's protection. Both aspects are suitable for the passage. Seeking refuge with the person, the weak, helpless, and dispossessed, who submitted a petition for help, were said to seek refuge with the ruler or people. And then we'll look down here too. Seeking refuge in a place. In antiquity, people often sought refuge in temples from which no one had the right to expel those who had come seeking refuge. In Israel's tradition, the altar was placed for safety, where they took a hold of the horns of the altar as a place to seek refuge. and also the Levitical cities of refuge that Moses set up. The 6 cities of refuge where the manslayer would flee for protection until his case was heard. So this particular verb here, katu or kata fugain here, is used here, and it's also used. I believe in Joshua it's used, and maybe also in Deuteronomy, where it talks about, well, at these cities of refuge is where the manslayer is to flee and to find refuge there. And so Coasters is picking up on this, and so he says a few things here, and we'll move on here. So maybe it's important here to look here back at Genesis chapter 22. And this is talking about the Acana, and it came about after these things God tested. So God tested Abraham and said to him, and he said to him, Abraham, and he said, "Here I am," and he said, "Take now your son, your only one, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him up there a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I speak to you." And Abraham arose early in the morning, and he bound his donkey and took 2 servants with him and Isaac his son, and he split the wood of the burnt offering, and he arose and went to the place which God spoke to him. And then it says, "And the angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time from heaven and said, by myself I swear, declares the Lord, because you have done this thing, and you did not withhold your son, your only one, I will certainly bless you and multiply your seed as the stars of heaven, as the sand which is upon the lip of the sea, and your seed shall possess the gate of his enemy, and in your seed all of the nations of the earth shall bless themselves, because you obeyed my voice." And Abraham returned to his servants, and they arose and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt in Beersheba. So yada yada yada. So this is kind of the text here from which he's quoting from as far as God swearing by himself. And so he uses these infinitive absolutes here. So they function somewhat adverbally, and it's just impressing that the certainty of that God will certainly bless and certainly multiply his seed. Okay, so we're moving along here. What we have for today, sorry that we just kind of skimmed through this, but we'll be coming here to chapter 7 here in our next unit here, and we'll be looking a little bit more specifically at Melchizedek and the and how that relates to Christ, and that should be enlightening. All right, well, God bless you, and we'll see you next time.